Hi, welcome to my online class. My name is Hera Ijaz and I'm science tutor. I've been teaching on e-learning platforms for the last 4 years. My major is biochemistry. Today we're going to talk about the thermal energy chapter. So in this chapter we will talk about what is thermal energy. We will see what are the type of energy, and we in the last we will discuss about the practical model that will explain you about the thermal energy transfers. And the learning objective basically related to this chapter is you will learn about how the thermal energy is transferred. Okay, so let's talk about the chapter's name. First of all, as you know, energy. What is energy? Energy is basically the power. In simple words, we will say energy is the power. Power, or it's a kind of strength or vitality that is required for sustaining the physical or mental health activity. Okay, so now here, let's go to the starter. Starter says there's a question. Think about it. What do you think the heat and temperature means? Heat and temperature are these the same things or different things? Okay, so answer. Heat and temperature, both these are the form of energies. Energy can neither be created nor be destroyed, but energy changes from one form to another form. Okay, so let's say like it transfers. You will learn about this thing in your next upcoming slides though, but this is a brainstorming stuff like I'm going to tell you. Let's say in the winters we have the cold hands, and when you rub your cold hands, or when you just shake hand with a person like who is having the warm hands, so your hands automatically gets warm after a few minutes or seconds. Why is this happening actually? The energy is transferring from the person who is having the warm hands into your hands, and you were having the cold hands. Now after shake handing with that person, you got the heat from that person. So what happened here? Energy transferred from one person to another person, from one body to another body. Now let's talk about what is heat and temperature. Heat versus temperature, these two are different terms. These two are the different terms that we are going to discuss. What do you think like the heat and temperature means? Are these the same things? Are the different things? Hmm, think about it. What do you think? What comes in your mind? Same or different? Okay, so you got your answer. Now, let's check it out. So, these two terms are actually different. So, what is heat? Heat, just like sound and light, heat is also a form of energy. But what are the units to measure the heat? We can measure the heat in the form of joules, like the units are joules. So, temperature. Temperature is another thing. Temperature we can measure. Okay, so temperature we can measure in Celsius. Temperature is something like we can describe how hot or how cold something is. Basically, it is a measure of hotness of an object. You can see a thermometer on the right hand side of this slide. So thermometer actually tells you about like the hotness, about the temperature. You might have noticed when a person is ill, so we can measure the temperature, like how much fever the person is having with the help of this thermometer. And the next one, heat as a energy. Now we know everything is made up of heat. As you can see in this picture is made up of small atoms. So heat is caused when these small particles or atoms they vibrate. Vibrate means they move, they strike, they collide with each other. So when they vibrate, when they will do more vibration, when they will do faster striking and stuff, so the more vibration will cause this object, this thing to become more hot. So we will say this object is becoming hotter because of the vibrations. Heat flows, heat also flows. Like heat flows from where it is hot to where it is cooler. Like the example I just told you about the hands, like the shake handing with a person who is having warm hands. If you, in the case, if you have the cold hands, so heat will transfer from warm hands to the cold hands. If you place a cold object, the second example is right here. If you place the cold object in the hot environment, in the heat, so that will flow into it. For example, what comes in your mind after reading this example? If you place a hot object in the cold environment, heat will flow from it. So the first example, let's talk about the first example, like that is saying the cold object in the hot environment. What comes in your mind, like cold object in hot environment? Think about it. What about ice? Ice, when you put the ice in the glass of water, let's say the water is having the normal temperature or the room temperature, we can say when we place the ice cubes in that water glass, so the ice starts melting. Why the ice melts? Because the temperature is for the ice is getting like hotter, so that's why ice melts. So the second example says when you put the hot object in the cold environment, so the hot object here, what comes in your mind by thinking the hot object in the cold environment? Okay, so I can say a cup of tea. Yeah, when we make tea, it's very hot. But when you just place that tea, or when you put that tea for some time on the table and forget to take that tea, or so you will see like after some time that tea will become cold. So that these were the general examples. Now let's talk about the proper examples related to this chapter. So, see, this is the first example. How heat is making a cold thing hot, like the piece of ice or the cube of ice. You can see if you place a block of ice, a cube of ice in the desert, heat will flow into it. Heat will enter from sun to this ice cube or the ice block, and the ice block will start melting and it will totally turn into the water. Now the next example, let's talk about it. So the next example was when you place the hot object in the cold environment. So if you place the fire in the cold desert or any area that is covered with snow, usually people who lives in Europe or the snow or the countries where they have to face a heavy snowfall, so they use the heaters or they use these firing stuff. So the fire is placed in the cold forest. It will heat up the surroundings. So what is happening actually? You can see the person standing here in this picture is getting heat from this fire. So heat is transferring from this fire to that person. The person was feeling cold, and when he got the heat from fire, so he is feeling good now. The temperature is getting normal, and he is also feeling the heat. So that's how these two examples, these two were the ways of transferring of heat. So see in this picture, heat also transfers. So what this picture basically telling us about, it says the heat transferred always from warm objects to the cooler objects. And the next thing is right here, internal energy heat. Okay, so that was a practical we need to discuss about the heat transfer. So the practical, it says, let's assume, means suppose we have two objects. Object means two things, like, so we have two objects, one is hot and the other is cold. What happens when we put them closer to each other? So you can see this object A is